Todd, knife, and tool. Just a pair of bros that, like us, really love knives. Bestech Knives, a Chinese manufacturer that has in recent years done nothing less than improve their quality and craftsmanship to rival the likes of We Knives. And together, the TKT Bros and the wizards at Bestech have put out some seriously amazing pieces. The Malware being their first, then the Shodan. I have both. I love both. And then out of the blue, my dude the Knife Whisperer, sub to his channel, give him a follow on Instagram, he is the man. Being all aware of my affection for the TKT Bros and their work, boxed up their third collaboration with Bestech and generously sent it to moi. And here it is, the Bestech Exploit, a full-size, full titanium fidget beast of a front-flipping frame-lock knife. And if you've seen the previous design from TKT Bros, you will no doubt immediately recognize this aesthetic. This uber 80s retro synthwave cyberpunk Blade Runner-esqueness has become something of a calling card for the bros, and I for one adore it. Every outrageous line, every unnecessary toolpath, all of the over-the-top jimping. It hits my eyeballs, travels directly into the pleasure center of my brain, bounces around for a minute before it sets off an endorphin rush. My pupils dilate, the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Sorry, excuse me. Anyway, visually speaking, it's more of what we've come to expect from the TKT Bros. Crazy milling, crazy drilling, wild lines, jagged edges. This variant is the full titanium model, but it's also available with the crazy tiger stripe flame anode finished titanium or black anode handles with the satin or blacked out blade, and of course it's also available with that stunning shred carbon fiber on the show side scale. All options look excellent. The blade shape is very reminiscent of what we saw on the Shodan, but the big design change here is the handle. Yes, on the surface, all of that buck-wild TKT design language is obvious, but the overall shape is less squared off and boxy like it was on the Shodan, and more, curvaceous, dare I say? I'm not sure how to describe it. Almost banana-esque in shape, swooped at the bottom, swooped at the top, to make this sort of arched back. I don't know. Work with me here. The clip is just as wild as the previous models from the Bros, and although it is not completely deep carry, it looks insane, and just so happens to work insanely well. And as far as ease of carry goes, I have no complaints. And that backspacer is no joke on the Exploit here. It covers, 80% of the entire back spine of the handle, and like the rest of this piece, it has been jimped, milled, and drilled into oblivion to echo the rest of the design. The same goes for that heavily jimped blade spine flipper tab area, this being a front flipper after all. I count 3 different kinds of jimping on the blade spine alone. 3 different kinds. It's so insane. God, I fucking love it. Now, this is a big knife, both in the hand and in the pocket, but I think this kind of aesthetic would look slightly out of place, maybe even borderline weird on a smaller knife. Size-wise, the S35V and blade is coming in at 3.5 inches long, and opened up, the overall length of the knife is around 8.2 inches. Don't quote me on that, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a fucking scientist. So definitely not a petite knife by any means. But all of that being said, if it's not completely obvious by now, the looks really do it for me. They do it for me real good. And now then, the ergos, it's easy to look at a knife like this and think, God, that looks like a nightmare in the hands. But you'd be wrong. Like their previous models, somehow, someway, all of the jagged edges and wild jimping, it just disappears in the hand, and you're left with one seriously secure grip. We've got this cutout echoed by an exceptional and fully usable finger choil on the blade, and the big swoop on the blade spine flipper tab area covered in all that jimping makes for a comfy little resting spot for your thumb. And this being a full-size knife, you've got all the room you could ever need. Choked up or choked back, it's as comfortable as can be. The jimping can be a little too intense, and certain grips are in the midst of some more heavy use tasks, but overall I can't really find anything to complain about in the ergo department. Moving on to the action, oh god, the action is where the TKT Bros pieces in the past have always blown me away, and this is absolutely no exception. Frame locks and front flippers have in the past been a point of contention in the knife world, take it or leave it kind of thing, but this being as big as it is, I've never found myself missing flips due to unintended pressure on the lock bar, and as far as a full-size front flipper goes, this might be the best I've ever experienced. It is running on ceramic bearings, and the D10 is tuned just wonderfully, so front flips, thumb flicks, and even spidey flicks are all just as snappy and satisfying as one could possibly want. The sounds this thing makes. Hold on, I'll shut up. Just listen to the clicky mechanical goodness. God, it's right. It sounds so sick. Their previous two models don't get anywhere close to this level of satisfying action. Now, the action on the previous models, they were exceptional, don't get me wrong, but this is something special. It feels so solid and so heavy duty when you fidget with it. And the fact that you can open this thing 3 different ways just triggers the fidget whore in me to no end. I just can't get enough of it. And the lockup, well, it is solid as a rock. That lock bar is easy and comfortable to get a hold of and move aside for the close. And on the close, it is just so silky smooth and almost completely drop shut. Endlessly fidgety and insanely satisfying overall. A+ in the action department. And finally, the blade. Oh, that big, beautiful satin finish S35V in blade is a slicing machine. And I love that nice belt satin finish. Bestech does a dynamite belt satin. We get some decently thick stock, but because this blade is so tall, that flat grind brings it all the way down. I'm talking, listen here fella, I'm talking all the way down to an atomically thin cutting edge. So paper and packages do not stand a chance in hell against this thing. It does, however, come down to a pretty thin and stabby tip, so avoid any kind of prying if you can. The plunge grind is dead even on both sides, and the only real nitpick I have with the blade is the lack of a sharpening choil, but with good maintenance habits, the steel will allow you to avoid sharpening for a good long while, so I don't see it being a serious issue. Oh, and a side note for the blade, it kind of goes back into Ergos. Right at the start of the plunge grind, right at the edge, at the finger choil, these 2 edges on either side here are insanely sharp and pointy. And although I have, happily avoided cutting myself with this knife, I have nicked and cut myself on these little pointy bits like several times. So to keep that in mind. All of that being said, where does that leave us with the Bestech exploit? Other than feeling exploited by Bestech and Todd Knife and Tool because they're draining my fucking bank account. And no surprise here, but I love this thing. The looks pulled me in, and the action, along with the cutting performance, absolutely ripped my fucking face off. Price-wise, we're looking at around $238 retail, and most if not all variants are in stock, almost everywhere I've checked. And I think that is a reasonable price to pay for a full-size, precision-made tank of a fidget freak. The fact that the TKT Bros can make a knife look this insane without losing the key aspects of what makes a good knife good, I mean, that is praiseworthy at the very least. And I am tempted to take the Knife Whisperer up on his offer to sell this particular knife to me. I mean, I already have it after all. Do I need it? No. Do I want it? Oh, fucking yes. Please, Daddy, please. So until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.